Thank you so much, Prakhar, for that lovely introduction. First of all, thank you so much, guys, all of you, for joining on a Saturday afternoon. So, I am going to quickly jump into some questions sent by all of you, some lovely people. So, the first question, so I don't have the names, of course, but I'll start with the first question. So, it's basically says that I want to have a wide vision about journalism, and I am new to this journalism part. I am not sure of the job roles one can take. Okay, so I'll quickly, start with briefing you guys about what has journalism in store in the kitty. First of all, it's divided into three sections. Of course, we all know print, digital, and TV. So all the J schools right now, which are currently, in India, obviously, gives these courses. These are 2 years courses, which are obviously a master's. These also can be like a PGDM course, which is a postgraduate diploma. I personally, I am from IIJNM Bangalore, which is also a PG diploma course, and I myself have had been a student of television journalism. I think coming back to the question, it's very personal. I mean, something which I feel you have been growing up with. Either you are a TV person, you literally watch the primetime news every night at 9 p.m., or you still are the old school person who, like still picks up the newspaper in the morning and literally goes through not only the headlines, but also the features and everything else, especially the op-eds, which we see, the opinion editorials. And last but not the least, I'm sure all of us are right now on the digital medium. We have all those apps on the on our phone, like First Post, like an NDTV, like a CNN News 18 or a CNBC, etc. Right? So I feel what you want to do is something which is very, very personal. Which medium do you want to take? Which medium interests you? Which medium you want to study? Something is something which you want to take in, and then you go on to choose which subject matter you want to study. I think all these J schools or journalism schools give you like a 1 month introduction to all of these courses, after which you get to decide which course do you specifically want. So these are the kind of subjects which courses offer you. The second part of the question, as I'm new to this journalism part, so I specifically don't know what you mean by journalism part, but I'm assuming that you are in a J school right now, and you're not sure of the job roles one can take. Okay, so if again, if you're in a J school, it depends. First of all, I would suggest that you obviously join a media house. There are a lot of these interview sessions, and then you will have a lot of options when it comes to J schools, because there are very limited number of news channels in the country, which is, yeah, it's a reality. So you will find a lot of marketing, a lot of PR jobs, a lot of these kind of opportunities which come in. So maybe you might want to sit through them and not promise them that you're going to join, because that's wrong. But you sit through them and you understand what kind of job opportunities you actually want. Speak to them. Interviews help a lot. If not interviews, then maybe conversations with these recruiters, conversation with your mentors, your professors. These are very, very important to be able to understand what exactly do you want to do, even if you stand confused after a 1 year course, which normally you shouldn't be. And the job roles, coming to that, everyone, all media students have to start from the desk. If you're joining an ET or a Times or a CNN, everyone has to join from the desk, because that's where you start. You start by understanding, watching news on a daily basis. That is something which you have to do every day. uh, Even if you stop reading the newspaper, which is also a must when you're in a J school. We personally used to have quizzes every morning. We have to, I personally used to read the Hindu, because that is something which was very, I used to find the content like, really, really helpful. And then we used to have quizzes every day. So that is something which you can't avoid. When you join a media house, you have to watch news every day to be able to understand the kind of content that goes on air, or the supers which comes on air, the capability of writing the crisp, small 150 characters supers. Normally when we speak like a liner, but normally in news it's different. There are top banks, there are supers, there are a lot of things which go. Times now is a channel, for example, who believe in populating the channel a lot. NDTV, on the other hand, is a channel who, like, likes to keep it clean, like the screen clean. So I'm sure all of you know that and understand that already. So obviously, joining from a news desk is something which I feel, if you want to go to the television journalism bit, you can always start writing as like a assistant sub editor when you maybe are joining like a print or a digital medium, to be able to understand the kind of crisp writing that goes in digital, the kind of long formats that go on print. Obviously, fact checking and the kind of stories that go on air. So it definitely needs like a 2 to 3 month course. So I think in that 1 year of your J school or the 2 years of your J school, you'll be able to understand which medium you want to go to. But I would say that it's best to start from the news desk or from, like by assisting an editor to be able to understand, the kind of writing which goes in a newspaper or a digital medium, because that is not how we speak, that is not how we say, and it's not easy at all. All right. So I'll obviously be taking all your questions. I see a lot of people joined. I will take all your questions, but I'll just quickly finish the questions which came in already. Second question: how do you handle criticism at the workplace? Okay, this one's a tough one. Honestly, I feel in my first job, everyone's first job comes with a lot of criticism. I mean, all of us get screamed at on a daily basis. We make, all of us are humans. We make human errors, but that's how we learn, And criticism is something which is, again, like it's something which you don't have to take personally. It's something which someone is telling you because the person wants you to improve, right? But there is another side of the story also. Sometimes you feel, if you feel that what you are doing according to you is correct, and you don't want to be corrected also, then you can absolutely have a discussion about it. Don't just let anyone criticize you saying that you're not worth it. No, that is not the way someone should criticize you in the first place. Again, I mean, all of us know there are different kinds of bosses in the industry, and touchwood, I have been very, very lucky that way. I always have been lucky to have good bosses. But then again, you have to understand one thing, that everyone has their days. I mean, even I lose patience on days where there is a lot of work pressure, there's a lot of breaking news happening. It's not easy, but you have to just keep at it and understand why the other person is saying, and to just to be able to grasp the learning only, and not take the part where you've been screamed at or whatever, like personally. And nothing personal. Work and profession and personal criticism have to have like this fine line and this balance, which is very important. Try, even if someone's screaming, or even if someone is criticizing you for your work, after that session is over, maybe at the end of the day, just try having a conversation with your mentor, a conversation with your boss, to be able to understand where you can improve and where you went wrong. I think that is the time when everyone has calmed down, and then the person might want to have a good conversation to be able to explain you that where you can improve, and take that back home, not the part where you've been called something which you didn't want to be called, of course. All right. So the third question: when did she feel she's successful? Has she reached the point of self-actualization? First of all, I don't know the definition of being successful, or the definition of success. There is no definition of success, first of all. Okay. I really feel when it was my first job, the whole idea of us having a successful day was important. I used to have early morning shifts, late night shifts, really, really, like graveyard shifts. So my idea was to be successful today. What I went to office and I opened my laptop, and what did I do today? What did I learn today? What did I contribute today? The every line, whatever I'm typing on my laptop, is going on air. Sometimes it is getting corrected, sometimes it's not, and it's going as is when you understand that, okay, fine, like maybe you're reaching a point of success. That is success to me. Little joys and little successes of life. Concentrate on today and what you're doing today, and don't think about 5 years later. And I feel it's like about being successful, or like a lot of people think that, okay, maybe I'm successful today, or I want to be. Everyone, I feel, has their goals, and until unless you reach them, I think no one can say that, okay, I am successful. But even if you have those goals, all of them should be being grateful to what you are today, and to be able to reach another height tomorrow. And those goals need to be defined in a very realistic manner, I feel. And it has to come, with every passing year, with every learning, with every job you take up, with every company you work with every team you work with. I think success, the definition of success changes. And then what success to you at 23 was, Success to me at 28 is something which is very, very, very different. So I think that keeps on changing. All right, moving on. Getting into media house after a degree and a little bit of experience. I don't know what experience you're talking about here, though. Getting into media house after a degree, after an experience of a different segment but related vertical. I don't understand one thing. Why are you guys in such a hurry? If you guys are studying something, be it a print or a digital or a TV, just spend some year in the newsroom, spend some year under an editor or a sub editor or in a news house or a print agency or a digital agency, and understand what exactly you are doing right now, whether you want to continue doing. Right? You really, really don't have to like hurry up and think that, okay, I'm learning television now and tomorrow I want to do marketing and branded content. No, that doesn't work that way. Everyone has to climb the ladder. You can't just like sit today and feel I want to do something of this sort 5 years later. You have to reach there and you have to make your way there, and that comes with a lot of learning, that comes with a lot of experiences, successes, failures, good days and bad days. So please don't hurry and think that I'm doing a print now, but I want to be a television anchor 5 years later. No, you might want to do something absolutely different 5 years later. So let's not plan that now. Let's look at today, learn today, get understand the best of our capabilities, our limitations, our challenges, and then move ahead, right? Okay, the next one. Pitching new stories, idea generation, content ideas, expanding horizons. Okay, I think this is going to be my favorite. This is going to be a bit long. Pitching new stories takes me back to my journalism days when I just started at IIJNM. We had to pitch 3 stories every week. Now, my college was at the remotest corner of Bangalore, really remote. Like we used to literally take some 1.5 hours to reach the city, the Bangalore main city. So the idea of mostly all J schools are, they ask you for 3 story ideas every week, and that can be from any sector, any genre, anything. And obviously, one gets approved. You have to so that again, sitting 1.5 hours away from the city and thinking of news ideas only can come from research and a bit of dedication, of course. So researching about what exactly do you think can a story be, I used to mostly, hover around hospitals and police stations, very, very honestly, just to, get some stories. There were good days, there were bad days. Maybe I went to the city thinking I will report on, this area's sewage problem, because that is also a problem. No stories, big or small, firstly. And then maybe I'm crossing a police station or a hospital and I quickly go and check, sir, koi story hai kya? And then they say that, this happened today and it's my big day, right? So I think you should always be ready with the kind of stories which you want to do. Research on what is happening in the city, reading newspapers every day, very, very, very important. Sometimes you also find stories where you are following up on a story, something which happened like a month back, and you're thinking, what happened? That stopped there, and there are no reports. You're obviously reading it every day. Then you find a follow-up story, which just, it's a success. So there used to be times when we used to get a lot of good stories. A lot of my batchmates have done stories in TV, in digital, in print, which actually was taken up by the local newspaper, and we were student journalists, by the way, and that used to be like very, very, like it's a big deal for us, right? And again, pitching is something which needs a lot of confidence. Firstly, you have to be very, very sure of what your story is about. Why is it new? Because every time I used to pitch a story, or everyone used to pitch a story, my mentors used to say, so what's new, what's the big deal? And used to feel, we used to literally go with so much of confidence, and it used to just be broken like this, and they used to be like, so what? And then you have to literally defend your story so that it doesn't get chopped off like that. That is something which is very important. So back up your story with facts, figures, numbers, researches, write them down. Everything doesn't happen on the phone, so write them down, speak to people, have genuine people giving you information, obviously, like maybe from cops to these local authorities, very, very important. When I was in Mangalore, I used to get a lot of information from the government officials from BBMP, that's the local authority there, like something we have like a BMC in Bombay or a KMC in Calcutta for that matter. Right, so that is something which is very important, pitching facts and figures, and then finally getting your idea into play, into action. Going out there and collecting all the information you have, writing them down. Also, if you're a TV student like I was, I used to immediately write my TV voiceovers. Like, what is a television story made of? Like an 8-minute story of news story is, or an 8-minute package, something which we used to do in CNN News 18. You used to start with a voiceover, and then you used to go to the reporter. So we never used to start reporting after entering CNN. So there used to be a reporter for who we used to write the story for. There used to be a voiceover. So those voiceovers I used to write down. Then there is a reporter. So a reporter P2C, P2C's full form is piece to camera, where you are directly talking to the camera, of course. And then comes bites. Bites are obviously for people who want to believe you, but they don't know what you're talking about. So obviously on TV there are so many people saying the same thing. There are people who are positive about it, negative about it. Obviously we all know that what we see on TV, something which we think is a bit opinionated, but sometimes we feel like, okay, this is something which is a fact. So that thin line of difference needs to be defined. You can't have your opinion when it comes to journalism at all. Like, never ever do that. That is the first lesson which I was taught. And though as a student we always used to, while defending our story, we used to put our opinions first. I think this is right. Yeah, and my mentors used to be like, no one cares what you think. So it is not that easy. It is tough, but you need to defend your story and back it up with facts and figures. Moving on. How is branding for a media channel different from other commodities companies? Okay, this is an interesting one. So quickly, I used to obviously be a political desk reporter back in CNN, and then I moved to branded content. I used to anchor a daily show, a daily MSME show called The Leaders of Tomorrow, and that is my first introduction to what branded content is. That first time I realized, okay, people pay you for making stories. I used to just think that it's for news and that's for TV, but no. These are all paid media content, revenue generated content, which are very, very interesting. I know everyone's selling something or the other. Agency, we are from soaps to whatnot. But there is also a good way, like a storytelling method, a digital media method, marketing method, long format, short format, documentaries, one-on-one interviews. There are so many formats which we can actually explore when it comes to storytelling, even for a soap, and every media house nowadays have this branded content section, of course, where they do storytelling. I know they sell also, but that's again, there's an art of doing that. And like we see a commercial on TV selling a soap. That is not the way I do it, for CNBC. The way I sell a car on CNBC, for example, I literally I pitched something like this. I literally took we were doing like an election bandwagon where Zoomcar was our sponsor, and I reported the political scenario of Delhi and Bangalore while the elections were going on. And with that, I also took the car, I put the Zoomcar branding on it, and I've taken that car around, like the whole city, and taking bites, where obviously the Zoomcar is also getting a lot of traction. And I am also doing my thing, and that story goes in the editorial section, but we get paid for it also. So everything is a win-win situation, like that, for example, we also create IPs at CNBC and across Network 18 a lot. I don't know if you guys have seen Mission Pani, something which Akshay Kumar has recently endorsed a lot. So that was a brainchild of someone at CNN News 18. Or Network 18 for that matter, which got sold by the brand Harpic. And that was something which is like a social matter, wasting water, conserving water. So very, very similarly, you can come up with IPs. If you're into branded content, I feel you can come up with IPs, long format, short formats, interviews. There are so many verticals to look at it. So coming back to the question, branding for a news channel comes with storytelling, comes with a lot of innovations, ideas, formats, marketing, digital, a lot of that, while you can just sell a soap by with a pretty face on TV saying that this is nice, and that's not how it works on TV. All right, moving on. Why did you choose a career in the media industry? Because everyone says it's so hectic. I think every job can be hectic, yeah. I mean, it's just not media. I don't know why people think media jobs are very hectic and there are long working hours. Trust me, I really believe that all of you guys should understand the thin line between working hard and working smart. That is something which a lot of people lack, I feel, you know. Work hard, of course, very very important, but also work smart. I mean, you have to get your schedules in place right in the morning whenever you start. I mean, when you start your day, something which is very personal. I start my day at 11. A lot of people start their day at 9, but I work till 11 in the night also, you know, even on a Friday night, you know. So you know, it's that is something which is very personal. So you create your schedules how you want to work. There is another question on work-life balance. I don't want to touch that up now because that's again a longer answer. But I feel every you know, profession can be hectic if you don't know how to time it out correctly. You have to time your schedule out during the day also. There are meetings, there are calls. Work from home has not been easy in a post COVID-19 scenario for all of us because work has increased. There are internet issues, and you know, we work in an environment where there are babies crying and pets barking, whatnot. I mean, I have faced a lot of these issues while taking live webinars where I literally had to tell people, sir, can you please you know, like mute your microphone or whatever. So I'm saying limitations rahenge, of course. Every job comes with its limitations, challenges, and a hectic schedule. But you have to define and draw that line where you want to make sure that you know, your time is worth it. Every minute spent on every project, on every call, you know, is spent properly, and obviously like efficiently. Efficiency is key here, and time management is also key. So every profession is hectic. It is just not journalism. But trust me, this is hectic but fun also. And you want to wake up the next day feeling motivated, and you want to think of new content, new ideas, and it is just not a job where it is the same thing every day. With due respect to every other profession, of course, but obviously I'll be a bit biased about mine. Moving on. How much do you think one can earn in your profession? I don't know how to answer that. How much do you think one can earn? Well, I think money will come eventually. I mean, you know, my former boss once said that you don't come to journalism if you want money. But you know, like obviously, I was discussing this with a friend, like, you know, that is this like something which I should do too? And she's like, no, Anushka, even money is important. So I really feel money is important as well, definitely. But you have to make your way towards it. I mean, see, nowadays, I think being very honest, an industry standard hike in a news organization maybe is a 30%, right? Once you cross that 6-digit figure in any organization, it starts slowing, because obviously people would want more efficient people and lesser cost. So even if you're paying someone like a 6 digit and the same efficiency and the same you know, work you're getting in like a half the price, then why not? So I think your work defines your salary. You have to make it, you know, to that. I mean, work your way towards that. And I really feel for the first 2-3 years, don't look at money. I personally have stuck to brands, which is very, very personal, because I wanted to work for brands. I wanted to understand and learn from the biggest and the best. I did not look at money, very honestly. A lot of people prioritize money, and that is also okay. But what I want to tell you guys here is, if you don't learn and if you don't know what you have to do 5 years later and just chase money, then it's going to fall apart one fine day, and that is not going to be nice. So why don't you, in the first at least 3 to 4 years of your journalism life, get screamed at, learn a lot, write a lot, read a lot, report a lot, and then maybe think that okay, maybe money will flow. Because I know a lot of people who are so dedicated for in a particular sector. Like, you know, a friend of mine you know, is into sports journalism, and he would not take up any other job even if he says that no, I am not taking anything else. if this is not sports. Even if he gets something which pays him way more than sports, but he will not. That is what dedication is. And I feel you only reach that stage after 3 4 years when you know you want to do this, and when you're good at, when you know you want to do this, you work hard towards it, you become good at it, and people pay you. Moving on. What should I study to be where you are today? Okay, this is something which is a bit personal, so I would talk about myself only here. I don't have a background in journalism. None of my family members were into journalism. No one even thought I would come here. I was a very, very average student. I used to hardly get passing marks in maths, especially. I really wanted to study economics, but then I realized that eco comes with a package, eco stat maths, and I'm like, why? Then obviously came in class 12 happened, and then obviously the college time came in where that challenge was there. Okay, this marks can only get you to only these colleges. And I think I'm from Xavier's, St. Xavier's Calcutta, and I think Xavier's had only one or two courses where marks did not matter. I mean, the basic marks mattered, but that also came with a challenge. At least 5 to 7,000 people every year give that one exam for mass communication and journalism in St. Xavier's College to get through, because there are hardly 50 seats and 25 general category, because 25 are Christian category. So obviously I given the exam with no expectations, and I somehow got through. And later on I realized all the questions, were very, because it's a film making course also. It only came with me watching news, reading the newspaper, watching movies, which mom said don't watch TV, but I watch TV. I watch good films. I watch films of all sectors, all genres. I read the newspaper. There were a lot of people in my family who would at least say, read the newspaper, read the newspaper. And I did that. So I think that is how I got into St. Xavier's Calcutta. For 3 years, I studied there, both journalism and filmmaking. Then we all have to do internships. So I very, very luckily got through CNN News 18, where I interned under the bureau head there, Shaugato sir. And I learned a lot. The internship period was for 1 month, but even after 3 months, I said, "Sir, can I work for one more month?" And then I realized that obviously it was all clashing. But I interned there for 3 months and went all over the city, understood how he reported, understood how he's doing piece to camera. Imagine a man after 50 years of experience, literally rehearsing his lines before going into camera and then saying it so seamlessly and beautifully. I used to think why he still needs to rehearse. I used to ask him that, and he's like, "Why not, Anushka? Why not? Why won't I rehearse?" And I'm like, "Yeah, okay." So there has been a lot of learning through those period. And then I obviously joined IIJNM Bangalore, where I took up television journalism, because I was into a lot of, like, I always wanted to work for TV, not as a news anchor. That is something which came way later, but I wanted to work for television. So I obviously joined that course. And again, there was a lot of learning, story ideas. First of all, the 1 month induction where to understand whether I want to do TV journalism or digital, where I again stuck to TV. Then 1 year of reporting, storytelling, ideas failing, ideas passing, good days, bad days, no story days. These days passed on, and then 1 year was like full crushing and grilling and literally taking the life out of you. Course that 1 year. And these are courses, like these are every day, everywhere scenario. Like even in ACJ grills you, IMC grills you, everyone grills you, because you just have 1 year, actually 11 months to study all of that, which normally is a course for 2 years in a master's, like a symbiosis for that matter. So, and then I did not take up college placements, and I interned for CNN News 18. So I got a call from my former boss saying, "Okay, are you done with your course?" And I'm like, "Yeah." So he asked me that, did you take up any college placements? I said I did speak to a few, but I did not like any of the jobs and the structures and the models, and they were mostly marketing PR, because our year did not come with a lot of job opportunities from any of these TV channels, because not every year is a good year for TV channels to literally take up 50 70 students from these day schools, right? So then I was very lucky enough to being called for an interview in Noida, and I've given that, and I've obviously, like, the rest is history. So that is what I studied, literally followed what I wanted to study. And I did that. I did not get into any course which, maybe I thought like the herd is following, so I should also do. I literally wanted to study television. I literally wanted to study filmmaking, and then I chose journalism. So everything, and this filmmaking, by the way, is very, very useful to me now, because apart from managing or strategizing or pitching for branded content, I also literally go out on the field and shoot, because I love the camera. And more than being in front of it, I love to be behind it, because I love my shots and the colors and everything else. So that is what I study. Moving on. Did you have a person to guide you as a student to choose your career? So as I said that I did not have someone in my family, close relative or family who was a journalist, but I have had a lot of people who were, like into journalism, mostly into writing. So they give me a lot of advice on, like, read, spelling, watch TV, read the newspaper, English, basic grammar, like so many times I would be corrected, like, when I'm talking normally, and like, they would say, Anushka, this is wrong. I'm like, so, I think guidance is something which is important, but it doesn't only have to come from your immediate family or immediate professors. Guidance can come from anyone. Guidance can even come from someone who is junior to you, because why not? Teachings, learnings, advices. I have had few mentors, maybe someone like a Shogato sir in CNN News 18, but I think I have never sat with him and taken advice. I think I've taken the advice and learning from people around who I was working with. There have been a lot of advices on dry days with my camera people as well, where I've asked, sir, aap aaj jahan pe ho kaise pahunche? And they would start their story with, I used to work with Doordarshan 20 years back. So isn't that an advice? Isn't that a learning? So learning advices can come from anyone. Anyone can be your mentor, not just someone who is your professor for that matter. So I think grasp knowledge from wherever you can, learn, and maybe the idea of journalism is listening more and talking less. That is something which is again like a big learning, listening more and talking less, because literally I used to eavesdrop also sometimes, being outside police station, what's happening inside, used to get screamed at also, but that is how we used to get our stories. Okay, next, what's your daily routine like? This is again very, very personal. My daily routine is always all over the place. Huh? I don't have a schedule. I don't have a to-do list like that. I don't think that, okay, tonight I'm going to sleep thinking tomorrow morning I have these things to do. I literally take as it comes. I start my day a bit late because I work till late. This is just me. I'm not an early morning riser at all, because all my ideas, creativities, and my work starts post 8 p.m. to be very, very honest, because the whole day, see, again, when you are climbing up the ladder, you have responsibilities added on, right? You are just not a producer, or you're just not a reporter. You are also managing a team, you are managing people, you have meetings and calls, and of course in a post-COVID scenario, meetings, calls are like very obvious. So the whole day it goes mostly about talking and meetings and calls. So I think after 8 p.m. is when I literally start doing all the creative work, like ideating, pitching, watching videos, understanding what works, what doesn't work, what works for TV, changing content, something which I'm thinking today, I can anytime change it tomorrow. And we are very client facing when it comes to branded content, right? So it is very, very critical and crucial to be able to understand from a, like a client's point of view, a brand's point of view of why do they give me money, and why do they not go to an ad agency? They can always do that, but they are coming to a news channel. Why? So you can never you know sway away from the fact that you always have to abide by the news rules, because you can't sway away from them. I mean, be it Money Control or a CNBC, which is like a daily business news channel. Of course, a CNN is a political channel. So marrying that news with marrying features, with marrying brands, and the way they look at it, and the why they come to you, that marriage is something which we ideate, and is something which is very, very important. What is the best part of the job that you enjoy? I think I would say challenges, because every day, every time there, I mean, at least with my kind of job, where there are unrealistic deadlines and something which people don't understand, but then there is. So I think challenges really excite me in my job, and something which I feel, even if your job is not challenging, make it challenging. You can always do that. Trust me. Make your life harder, if not easier. Something which I've learned is I never got comfortable with my job. I've never done that. At the moment I thought I am very, very comfortable and I'm done learning what I had to learn from this channel or these people, I moved on, to be very honest. That is how, like, in the last 7 years, I've changed 3 jobs. And I obviously wanted to stick around a bit more, but then I feel you should always move on. Moving on is very, very important, but that doesn't mean that you move jobs every year just for the sake of going into a better organization or better designations or better money. There is still a lot to learn from your current organization, but the moment you feel you are done, like this is the max you could do, and there is no more growth which you can see, immediate growth, then I feel you definitely should move on. But I feel every day should be a new day. Every day should come with new challenges, and definitely problem solving skills is something which is very important. Being patient is something which is very important. And I think, having said so, dealing with so many people and challenges and creative pitches, um, clients, very, very importantly. And after that, literally having everything successfully done throughout the day, I think that is something which is like, it just makes my day better and makes my sleep a bit more peaceful. Second last question. How do I know I'm right for the job? I think you know when you're right for the job. You know when you want to do what you want to do. Um, I believe that I never thought I would become a journalist one day and then go to the marketing creative side of it. And not that I'm bored of journalism. I used to still love doing that. But everyone has their own passion which they follow, and please don't go to journalism just because you think it's cool, just because a lot of people are going that way, because media schools are cooler or whatever, and engineering is not. Please don't ever think that. uh, this also, as I said, it comes with its own set of challenges, and if you are not somebody who is literally interested in something like this, then it's just not going to work out for you. So I think if you are actually interested in what's, like, like daily affairs, you literally admire an anchor. Like I used to, I still do admire Nidhi Rajdan a lot. I used to watch NDTV a lot. I read the newspaper, see the way they write stories, opinion articles especially, and then obviously go through these courses, all these courses, from a 2-year course to a 1-year PG diploma course, understand what they offer, every point, and maybe then speak to a lot of people who are into this course, and then maybe you'll know that if this is the right course for you. So there is always a way to find out, but please don't follow the herd and just go to it because you think journalism is cool. Last question. Is work-life balance a mess if I enter your industry? I think everyone's work life is different. Everyone's family is different. Everybody comes with their own small, big houses, small, big families. Uh, it's up to you again. Work life is something which is, again, as I said before, it is very personal. You can never have a to-do list or make schedules. That will fail all the time. Like, you try doing it. You make schedules today, you follow it for a month, but that will just not be forever, right? So why don't you, like, literally sleep tonight and take tomorrow as it comes? Why do you have to plan everything? Plan critical stuff. If you have a shoot tomorrow morning, obviously plan that today. I'm not saying that, but literally take stuff as it comes. That is way better rather than wasting your time planning the next 1 month and all your plans change. So again, work life, I feel, if you ask me personally, how I strike my work life balance, I I'm not a person who works 11 to 6 and after 6 p.m. I'm not available on calls and emails. That doesn't work with me. So I take my breaks in between, in the morning, obviously, I try and work out a bit, which I fail every day. And then I obviously start my day with a cup of coffee, and then maybe at 12:30, I maybe have my breakfast. I know, please don't follow this, but yeah, this is how, because it's very hectic and I live alone. So it's not like, I can have like proper meals at proper time. That doesn't work with me. But the whole idea, what I follow is I take my little breaks. I take a 15-minute break. I have a pet in the house to just maybe play with the pet. I take 15-minute break to quickly listen to a song, which is which I like, which gives me a lot of energy, and take that 15-minute break off and then quickly get back to work. But I don't follow that 11 to 6 schedule, because that is not how it works, especially in a post-COVID scenario, because you have to be available, active on emails and calls. And I feel work-life balance is important, but then again, it's not like you're not available just because you have that that straight line that I am not going to work after 6 p.m. because work-life balance. Sometimes I'm working on the weekends also, but sometimes when I have plans, I tell my people who I work with that I have plans. Sorry, I can't make it this week, and they understand. So they understand because I work round the clock, but round the clock doesn't mean I boast my dark circles. Round the clock means I am giving all my time, and every minute I'm trying to make it as efficient as I can. And I'm trying to finish my work and then go back to my schedule, which, is something which keeps on changing from day to day, from weekend to weekend, from holidays to taking vacations. I don't work on vacations, by the way. So I think I am pretty much done with the questions which came in, and I'm going to spend another 10-15 minutes answering all your questions. So anyone has any questions for me, please shoot.
Thank you so much, ma'am. So, guys, we are open for questions. Please raise your hand if you have the questions.
So I can see one on chat. Someone, Rohan Thakur, sent, you've climbed up the ladder. Now you're a boss and a mentor. Is it hard to lead or be taken seriously this early in your career? Uh, it's like I think defining someone as a boss, mentor. Yes, I like mentoring people, but I also love my mentors, because I always believe in listening more than talking, always. But definitely helping someone out, my juniors out, people who have just passed out from colleges. This year has been very, very tough for students. They did not get placed yet. So many people. And my heart goes out to them. So I try my best to help them out in any way I can, any job leads. But is it hard to lead or be taken seriously? I think you are taken seriously only when you make sense, only when you contribute efficiently in a team. That is when you're taken seriously. But it is not hard to lead ever. Uh, you mentioned the word boss. I also manage a team, but I've never honestly taken them as people who work under me. You never do that, because uh, you work with them, right? If so I'm talking about my editors and my designers. Every day they are the people who are incorporating my ideas. If it was not for them, then I wouldn't have been delivering it to my clients. So please treat everyone in your workplace with respect. Everyone has their good and bad days. If they have a bad day, listen. If you have a bad day, they will listen to you. And trust me, that is how you build that work chemistry with your bosses. And that is something which I learned from my boss. She was never a boss to me, she was always a friend, right? So that is something which is very, very important. And taken seriously this early in your career, I think someone who is 23 or someone who is 30, it's never too early, it's never too late. Just keep at it and take every day as it comes. Treat people with empathy. uh, Understand everyone has their days, and have conversations with them rather than telling them that they're no good. So I think that is what worked for me. Any other questions, guys? Harshit Chandani. Yes, Harshit, please go on. You're on mute. You have to unmute yourself.
Hello, ma'am.
Hi, Harshit.
Like you told me that you connect with the brands to share, like to advertise them on your channel. or like any episode you have, like you told us
Please
about
go on.
yep, you told about the Zoom car. So how you face the difficulty like integrating their brand purpose with your brand and advertise it and share it with the audience? Does it sometimes feel difficult, and how you just get out from that zone and bring ideas for that?
I'll tell you. So it's not very challenging. What I do is what we do on a regular basis, like a daily basis. For example, if I am working on a news story which involves elections, I still try and monetize that. The idea here is to get in revenue for my company, something which is also my KRA, like, my KRA for the year, something which I have to do as a part of my job. So I marry the two, stories, like one is news, of course, one is elections. And then I think about an idea or ideating something which goes with the idea, and then connect the two, connect the dots, and then think how and why will Zoomcar associate with me. Like, when I'm doing elections, do they have to do anything with elections? No. Do they care about elections? No. Then how do I give them branding, and how do I have my news idea also? Because I can't randomly brand anything anywhere, because it's a news channel at the end of the day, right? It's not an ad agency that we can work in any sector, in any genre, and with anything or the other, right? So that is the whole idea. It's not very challenging, I feel, because the idea here is to literally meet challenges, to marry the two reasons why they exist. The idea exists, Zoomcar exists, and then join the dots together, and then by the idea of storytelling, of course, you get your idea across. I'll give you another example. There are a
Okay.
lot of examples though. Like, we nowadays are doing a lot of webinars, right? We recently have done an ICICI Smart Investor, where we again, like, through our webinars, of course, we have our very, very famous anchors on air. We Through that ICICI Smart Investor webinar, we obviously pitched it to ICICI and understood what they want, understood what are their new products, mutual funds, of course. So ICICI Pru, that segment of ICICI. And then obviously we had a discussion with our anchors, because we already have a lot of mutual funds, so there can't be multiple mutual fund shows. So we had to customize that brand, ICICI Pro, into a proper news show, build 7 to 8 episodes out of it, and then put that on air with relevant logos, relevant brandings, relevant anchor mentions, of course, very, very important. And then we shoot it, of course. We use a Zoom, we use a StreamYard. StreamYard is something which we use a lot, because it has the option of giving labels and name astons. Then we shoot it. Then we post-produce it. After post-production, we have an episode ready. From the episode, we cut promos. We run them on TV, we run them on digital, and then we have the campaign on board. We make that live. After making that live, sometimes we do paid marketing on Facebook, paid marketing on YouTube. Apart from that, we all obviously have these SMSs and notifications going. We don't spam people, of course. But that is how we do the marketing side of it. And that is how we build the brand into what we are already doing, not harming the current piece of CNBC, because they are very, very strict. Even if they know money is coming in, you can't tamper with CNBC's current system and how they function and how they work, right? But they also understand the idea of branded content, and have been very open to it, very, very, which is great. So this is how we tackle branding, tackle clients, and join the dots between a news channel, which is a bit not very flexible, but tries to be, and clients who are never flexible. Next question.
Thanks a lot, ma'am.
Okay, ma'am. Even I've got one question for them. So what's the key point we should cover while doing the story? Like if we are starting it from scratch?
What is the key point, key element?
Yeah, key elements we should cover while doing the story.
First of all, you have to understand what story are we doing. I will take a very, very generic story right now, because it's easier to understand. Bangalore has a lot of sewage problems, honestly. At least 7 years back it had, right? So again, if there is a sewage problem, for example, and there have been reports about it and BBMP has not been doing anything about it, you first of all read about Bangalore sewage problem from 2000 to 2014 or 2015. 15 years of sewage problem in Bengaluru. For example, metro railway is constructed in a specific part of Calcutta for the last 10 years. So today, if I go to Calcutta, if someone asks me to do a story on Calcutta's civic authorities, maybe I want to pick that point up and understand that I've heard this has been going on, but why, why the delay, right? So first of all, literally going back in time and understanding every bits and pieces, every follow-ups, every advancement of that story of what happened, when it happened, listening to bites of people, and then we obviously get in the numbers and facts and figures, and very, very importantly, listening from the horse's mouth to be able to speak to the civic authorities and understand. So they will obviously not take any. Then comes the whole blame game that it's their job, it's not our job, and then obviously you can't be, have your opinions in place. So you have to put in everyone's opinion and then have a question. 15 years of sewage problem in Bengaluru. When will we see light at the end of the tunnel? Very, very cliche line, but something like, I would just like kind of mention like a headline of sorts, for example. So research, very important, going back in time and understanding what the problem was, because the problem, no problem is new until unless it's breaking news like a rape or something else. And even rape is a big problem and it's an old problem. But I'm talking about breaking news. So apart from breaking news, everything can be researched, facts and figures can be dug out. You can always speak to people from past, present, future, and then you collate your points, consolidate them in one particular document, and then make your story, keeping all your opinions aside, and then have an introduction, of course, give your points, ask the right questions, don't give any answers, because that's for the readers to discern, and then have a conclusion. Always ask with a end with a question. That, again, as I said, that this has not been done, so that's news. But again, ask yourself, what I'm doing right now, is this new? Is this news? Is this relevant to people? Is it important to people? Why will people read my story? For example, in digital, if I'm doing a story, there are a lot of times when I made something like a 5-minute video and I sat through it. And I literally like, deleted the whole version, because I myself thought, if I were on Facebook, I work for moneycontrolcnbc.com also. If I am on social media and I'm scrolling my, my feed, and this story comes online, am I going to scroll through or am I going to literally watch it? Very, very important when it comes to branded content. Every minute, the first 10 seconds, guys, remember, it's very, very important for a digital content to be able to attract your attention. If it doesn't in the first 5 seconds, you've lost the plot. Any other questions, guys?
Thank you. Yeah. Any other questions, guys?
Vaidehi, please go ahead. Unmute yourself, please.
Yeah, hi.
Hi.
So my question was that how much time should we spend on research for an article? I mean, if it's a, let's say, a breaking news, so how much time should we spend on that? Because research is like you can just go, like it can just go on and go on.
When it comes to breaking news, like you said, there is no time for research. You literally only have time to authenticate your numbers, figures, and if the news is genuine or not. You don't have time for research. Quickly, you go back and understand at least 1 or 2 points of what happened. For example, like a scam, for that matter, it's a breaking news and someone got arrested. So you give that breaking news first, you say someone is arrested, and then maybe if you are lucky enough to work in a news channel, you have a research team who quickly, if you're on, your headphones on your mic or your, air connectivity you have with your research team, someone quickly tells you, Harshad Mehta got arrested in 1992. He got, a call by the cops in this time. he again got bail at this time. So quickly someone feeds you with that. So in breaking news, you don't have time for research. This is only for breaking for TV. When it comes to print, you have all the time in the world to research. But if you have a deadline, you don't, right? So it all depends on what story you're working on. It depends on your deadlines. But I think research is very important, but quick research and to be able to understand the kind of story you're doing, how much research you want to do on it, and not wasting a lot of time on it, but getting the right facts and figures to be able to back up your story with research. Your story is still fresh and new. Research is just to back that up and defend your story before someone can tell you what's new, what's sold, or why does a story stand. Why should I listen to you? That is all what the research does. When you are doing very long formats like a documentary series for video, or a long feature format on wildlife in Sundarbans, for example, on print, or a magazine for that matter, research can take days. Huh? And that is when you take your time to do research. That is when it comes to video, go to Sundarbans and shoot and do a recce before you actually go and shoot in Sundarban your documentary. Or if you are writing for a magazine or writing for print, research again is very, very important. When you actually know that this animal used to live 20 years back, now the animal is extinct. Like you're doing a story on extinction of animals in the last 20 years, like 2 decades. So that is obviously something which you need to research on. Otherwise, how will you back your story up? So research depends on the kind of format you're working on. If it's a breaking, you don't have time, because deadline is key when it comes to journalism. If someone else breaks the story in front before you, then the story is not breaking anymore. Thanks, Vedini, for your question. Anyone
Thank you.
else?
Thank you so much.
We'll take two more questions.
Yeah, guys, any other questions?
I have a private chat. Someone messaged asking, since you spoke about documentaries, when are you starting yours? Well, that is something which is very close to my heart and something which I really want to do. Sometimes, with all these marketing and branding and digital and TV, everything else, I really miss the part where I used to literally take up my camera and a sling bag camera and my hat on, because Bangalore can be hot. And I literally used to go out and start shooting, and I really, really miss that. So one thing to all of you guys, even if you are working or even if you're doing your job, I totally understand where you should follow your passion and dream and you should be happy with what you're doing, but please find a way to also make time for something which you really want to do, maybe shooting documentaries or taking pictures or doing whatever you love. So please don't sacrifice on that. Me time can be watching Netflix. Me time can also be clicking pictures of random things under the sun. So please do that. Last question, guys.
Can I ask, ma'am?
Yes, please do.
Okay, ma'am. So I'm a food blogger and a travel blogger as well. So, and I want to be a photojournalist. Okay, so how can I start with that?
I would say definitely first start with finding someone who's your role model, because again, photos are something which everyone, I'm sure you follow a lot of these photographers, and you literally read their blogs, because if you want to be a blogger, you definitely should read a lot of blogs first before writing yours. Even one headline would need experiences and understanding how it's written and everything else. So I really feel, understand who your role model is. Try, if you can, even if it's virtual, but speak to the person, take some lessons on it. I really feel photography courses are very it's something which, again, very, very important. Like something which you, for example, if you want to understand which DSLR should you buy, a 5D Mark II or a Mark III or a Canon or a Nikon, or if you want to understand what lighting or what shutter speed for that matter. So those technicalities is something which you should learn, but the eye for it, I really feel when it comes to pictures, you have to have the eye for it. A picture from a DSLR as compared to a very plain Jane picture from a VGA camera, sometimes I really feel the framing is so beautiful. So when, I'm sure you know the whole 180-degree rule and all of that, because you yourself, I'm sure, clicks pictures. But having that right frame and understanding what you want to click, and that idea, with that idea in mind, go out, click pictures of everything you find. And sometimes the rarest of the finds are the most precious ones, huh? And maybe then find out who your role models are. If you can, take it professionally and maybe intern under them. If you really feel they are offering courses, I really feel you should join them, because you never know, while learning with someone or learning under someone, if the person actually thinks that you are capable and you're worth it, then the person might take you as an intern. And that is how a lot of my friends who are photojournalists today have started their careers. So I think every career should have a path, a direction, if not a particular plan, because plans change, plans fail, right? But a direction is very important. You know where you're going and why. I'll
Thank
take
you
the
so much for this advice,
last.
ma'am.
Thank you, Prakhar. I'll take the last question, because someone asked, because kids will face this. How do you deal with a bad boss, keeping your sanity and work towards your goal? Um, Okay, so I really feel, as I mentioned in the very beginning, that there are no good and bad bosses. I feel everyone has their days. Every boss has, also have had their days when they also started their journeys. See, everyone doesn't have the right way of, mixing with people or mentoring people or handling a team. Everyone might not be a team player, but they might have the experience to be able to drive a team, or that is the reason why they are bosses today. ऐसे ही like कोई boss नहीं बन जाता, right? But I really feel, take the goods from them, only the good. And maybe again, we spoke about handling criticism at the very beginning, that if someone is criticizing, understand why, what is the person trying to say as a message, and at the end of the day, if you really feel you had a very bad day, being screamed at, or for no reason, for something which is of no reason to you, might be of a lot of reason to your bosses, right? So try and have a very simple conversation. Just go to your boss and ask, hey, can I just have a 5-minute conversation with you? The person might snap back and say, not now. But maybe you might want to try it 2 days later. Someday the person might say, yes, tell me what do you want to know? And then you might say that, I just wanted to learn something, and I just want to, I know maybe I'm not doing, well at this, but, I'm really trying my best to learn this or to do this. Can you please help me? I really need your support. I think somewhere we are just like, the gaps are not being filled, or somewhere it's missing. So can we just work together to work things out? Because I really want to learn it from you. So even if the other person is not being empathetic towards you, you don't have a reason not to do the same, right? Again, as I said, every day is different, every mindset is different, every person's dealing with another person, big or small, junior or senior, is different. So don't judge, move on, don't take anything seriously, especially after you go home. That is not worth it. Something which I used to tell everyone who used to work for times now with a former boss. I'm not going to take names. All right, guys, I think it's time to wrap up. Thank you, Prakhar, for being such a
Thank you,
good
ma'am.
guest. And thank you guys so much, all of you, for joining. Signing off. If you guys have any questions, I would love to take them offline. You guys can connect on LinkedIn. I am with the same name. Thank you, guys. Thank you so much for
Thank you so
joining.
much, ma'am. Thank you so much for the amazing
Bye.
session. Thanks so much.